Christmas was approaching, but a video spreading on TikTok had shaken the entire city of Boston. A couple, in a frenzy of passion, switched on autopilot in a black SUV and sped down the highway. Ignoring everything around them, they began an intense, two-person game right there in the car. At the peak of it, the car lost control and slammed into the barrier. And the man in that video was my husband. I am Hannah. While waiting in front of the school gate to pick up my child, I casually picked up my phone and scrolled through TikTok. The screen lit up, short clips flashing by. A girl dancing to the latest trend, a dog stretching with a long yawn, then a baking recipe I knew I'd never try. Suddenly, a notification popped up, bright and impossible to ignore. A trending video, more than 300,000 likes, 500,000 shares, all in less than 20 seconds of footage. Curious, I tapped it. The screen showed a shiny black SUV swaying on the highway like it was seasick. Through the tinted glass, two naked bodies were locked together, moving violently. The driver's seat was empty. Completely empty. Autopilot, no doubt. What was this? Could people really be this reckless? Risking their lives just to chase after pleasure? The comments section was absolutely exploding. People out here risking their lives just for that? No thanks. Total wild couple energy. No way a married couple's pulling this off. I thought I'd seen it all, but this? I'm shook. Too much free time and zero brain cells, apparently. Internet's right. Nobody who values their life would try this nonsense. I need the follow-up tea like yesterday. Like someone said, crash like that? You're either dead or done. Guess they went out with a bang, though. I rewound the video, trying to see more clearly. The black SUV, glossy paint, smooth lines, and a small star-shaped sticker stuck in the corner of the rear window. My heart pounded wildly, as if it was about to break out of my chest. This car? Why did it look so much like my husband's? No, impossible. It had to just be a coincidence. There were hundreds of black SUVs out there, right? My hands trembled, but my thumb moved on its own. I forwarded the video to my husband, adding a short message. "Babe, look at this. Crazy. Doing that right in the car." I tried to keep the tone light, like I was just sharing something funny, but my palms were drenched in sweat. I waited, my eyes glued to the screen. 1 minute, 2 minutes. No reply. The video kept playing. The SUV swerved, drifting across the lane markings like a wild animal out of control. Then suddenly, a piercing screech burst from the phone's speaker. The car slammed hard into the guardrail along the highway. The front of the vehicle crumpled, mangled like a piece of paper crushed in a fist. The screen went black. The video ended. I stood frozen, breath trapped in my chest. Just 20 seconds, but it felt like it had stretched into a lifetime. The school bell rang, tearing through the silence in my head. Children poured out of the gate, laughter and chatter rushing out like waves. Liam ran toward me, his blue backpack bouncing on his shoulders, shouting, "Mom, my teacher praised me today." I smiled, ruffled his hair, and said, "Good job, son." But my mind was still trapped in that video. The SUV, the two figures, the empty driver's seat. Act 2. The school bell rang, sharp and lively, cutting across the tangled mess of thoughts in my head. I quickly shoved the phone into my pocket, stood up straight, my back peeling away from the iron fence that had begun to feel cold against me. The kids burst out of the school gate like a swarm of bees, laughter, chatter, and pounding footsteps all merging together. I squinted, searching for Liam in the crowd. He appeared, bouncing, his blue backpack swinging on his shoulders, his face glowing like the late afternoon sun. "Mom!" Liam shouted, running up and hugging my legs, grinning wide, showing off the crooked new front tooth that had just grown in. Looking at him, my heart softened a little. I held Liam's hand, his tiny warm palm fitting snugly in mine. "How was your day, son?" I asked, trying to keep my voice cheerful. Liam started chattering away, from how his teacher praised his drawing to how a classmate dropped his pencil case. I smiled, the corners of my mouth curving up, even though inside I felt heavy. Watching him so innocent, I thought to myself, cherishing life means thinking of family, of the people Liam loves. Who would do something so insane like in that video, risking everything just to chase pleasure? On the way home, Liam sat in the back seat, fiddling with a craft kit he'd brought along. I glanced in the rearview mirror, seeing him pull out a bottle of superglue, his small hands covered in paint, plastic gloves smudged. "Liam!" I called, my voice sharper than I intended. "Stop right now. No crafts in the car. You hear me? It's dangerous." Liam looked up, his big round eyes staring at me with confusion, as if I had just forbidden him candy. "But Mom," he mumbled. "Dad lets me do it in his car." I shook my head firmly. "Not in Dad's car either. Last time you spilled glue all over the seat, I had to scrub for an hour." Liam pouted, lips pressed tight as if about to cry. "But Mom, I cleaned it up," he protested, his voice full of frustration. "Dad always keeps my glue in his car." Then suddenly, as if remembering something, his face lit up. "Oh no. I forgot my glue in Dad's car." Before I could react, he had already grabbed my phone from the front seat, quickly recording a voice message. "Daddy, I left my glue in your car. Please bring it home for me. Love you." I laughed, but the sound was dry, hollow. "I already told Dad. You left your glue in the car," I said, forcing my tone to stay calm. Liam nodded, satisfied, then went back to his craft kit, happily rambling on about school. Cold wind swept through, carrying a few red oak leaves falling gently from the trees outside my mother's house. I held Liam's hand. "Mom, is Dad going with me for Christmas?" Liam asked, his clear eyes looking up at me with eager hope. I gave him a faint smile, ruffling his hair. "Of course, son. But for now, you'll stay with Grandma a few days, okay? I have some things to take care of." My mother opened the door, her eyes probing me, as if she could see the storm swirling inside. I pushed Liam inside, handed him over, then turned quickly, afraid her gaze would hold me back, force me to spill the truth about the black SUV and the TikTok video that haunted me like a ghost. Just as I reached my front door, my phone buzzed in my coat pocket, breaking through my racing thoughts. "Unknown number." I answered. A deep voice spoke, cold as winter wind. "Mrs. Wilson, this is Central City Hospital. Your husband has been in a severe traffic accident. His condition is critical. Please come at once." The words hit me like a stone dropped into my chest. "Accident?" I whispered, my voice cracking. "Yes, please come immediately," the voice replied, then hung up. My head spun. At the hospital, I rushed into the emergency wing, breath ragged. A doctor stood at the door, his gaze kind but heavy, as though bracing me for a blow. "Mrs. Wilson," he said, his voice deep like a church bell. "Your husband. Because of reckless behavior, he was in a severe accident. Both his legs were crushed beyond repair. His internal organs are badly damaged. We recommend amputation and removal of destroyed tissue to keep him alive." My knees buckled. I collapsed against the cold brick wall, hands clawing at it for support. "Do it," I whispered, tears burning hot down my face. "Please, just save him." The doctor handed me the consent form, his eyes full of pity. My hand shook so badly that my signature was crooked, broken, like his life now. I knew, the moment the pen touched paper, his life had shattered. His legs, his freedom, everything he once had, all reduced to ashes. but inside me, a cold fire sparked. I lowered my head, hiding the smile I couldn't hold back, because when I found out, he had secretly bought a massive accident insurance policy. For me and Liam. The beneficiary? Not me, not our son, but him. In that moment, I understood. He hadn't just betrayed me, he had plotted to take our lives for profit. A few days earlier, I had been planning to take Liam to my mother's house in the suburbs of Boston to get ready for Christmas. We had planned to go skiing in Vermont, watch the hills blanketed in snow, and warm ourselves by the fireplace with mugs of hot chocolate. Liam had even made a list of Christmas gifts he wanted to give his father. But a strange feeling, like a whisper from deep inside, left me unsettled. I decided to take the car in for service. When the technician checked it, he called me over, his voice grave. "Mrs. Wilson, the braking system has been tampered with." I froze, clutching my chest, my heart squeezed tight. In that moment, the hatred I felt for him surged to its peak. You did this. For money, you were willing to kill me and Liam, the son you once held close and called God's gift to you. The school bell rang, sharp and lively, cutting across the tangled mess of thoughts in my head. I quickly shoved the phone into my pocket, stood up straight, my back peeling away from the iron fence that had begun to feel cold against me. The kids burst out of the school gate like a swarm of bees, laughter, chatter, and pounding footsteps all merging together. I squinted, searching for Liam in the crowd. He appeared, bouncing, his blue backpack swinging on his shoulders, his face glowing like the late afternoon sun. "Mom!" Liam shouted, running up and hugging my legs, grinning wide, showing off the crooked new front tooth that had just grown in. Looking at him, my heart softened a little. I held Liam's hand, his tiny warm palm fitting snugly in mine. "How was your day, son?" I asked, trying to keep my voice cheerful. Liam started chattering away, from how his teacher praised his drawing to how a classmate dropped his pencil case. I smiled, the corners of my mouth curving up, even though inside I felt heavy. Watching him so innocent, I thought to myself, cherishing life means thinking of family, of the people Liam loves. Who would do something so insane like in that video, risking everything just to chase pleasure? On the way home, Liam sat in the back seat, fiddling with a craft kit he'd brought along. I glanced in the rearview mirror, seeing him pull out a bottle of superglue, his small hands covered in paint, plastic gloves smudged. "Liam," I called, my voice sharper than I intended. "Stop right now. No crafts in the car, you hear me? It's dangerous." Liam looked up, his big round eyes staring at me with confusion, as if I had just forbidden him candy. "But, Mom," he mumbled, "Dad lets me do it in his car." I shook my head firmly. "Not in Dad's car either. Last time you spilled glue all over the seat, I had to scrub for an hour." Liam pouted, lips pressed tight as if about to cry. "But Mom, I cleaned it up," he protested, his voice full of frustration. "Dad always keeps my glue in his car." Then suddenly, as if remembering something, his face lit up. "Oh no, I forgot my glue in Dad's car." Before I could react, he had already grabbed my phone from the front seat, quickly recording a voice message. "Daddy, I left my glue in your car. Please bring it home for me. Love you." I laughed, but the sound was dry, hollow. "I already told Dad, you left your glue in the car," I said, forcing my tone to stay calm. Liam nodded, satisfied, then went back to his craft kit, happily rambling on about school. Cold wind swept through, carrying a few red oak leaves falling gently from the trees outside my mother's house. I held Liam's hand. "Mom, is Dad going with me for Christmas?" Liam asked, his clear eyes looking up at me with eager hope. I gave him a faint smile, ruffling his hair. "Of course, son. But for now, you'll stay with Grandma a few days, okay? I have some things to take care of." My mother opened the door, her eyes probing me, as if she could see the storm swirling inside. I pushed Liam inside, handed him over, then turned quickly, afraid her gaze would hold me back, force me to spill the truth about the black SUV and the TikTok video that haunted me like a ghost. Just as I reached my front door, my phone buzzed in my coat pocket, breaking through my racing thoughts. "Unknown number," I answered. A deep voice spoke, cold as winter wind. "Mrs. Wilson, this is Central City Hospital. Your husband has been in a severe traffic accident. His condition is critical. Please come at once." The words hit me like a stone dropped into my chest. "Accident?" I whispered, my voice cracking. "Yes, please come immediately," the voice replied, then hung up. My head spun. At the hospital, I rushed into the emergency wing, breath ragged. A doctor stood at the door, his gaze kind but heavy, as though bracing me for a blow. "Mrs. Wilson?" he said, his voice deep like a church bell. "Your husband, because of reckless behavior, he was in a severe accident. Both his legs were crushed beyond repair. His internal organs are badly damaged. We recommend amputation and removal of destroyed tissue to keep him alive." My knees buckled. I collapsed against the cold brick wall, hands clawing at it for support. "Do it," I whispered, tears burning hot down my face. "Please, just save him." The doctor handed me the consent form, his eyes full of pity. My hand shook so badly that my signature was crooked, broken, like his life now. I knew, the moment the pen touched paper, his life had shattered. His legs, his freedom, everything he once had, all reduced to ashes. But inside me, a cold fire sparked. I lowered my head, hiding the smile I couldn't hold back. Because when I found out, he had secretly bought a massive accident insurance policy for me and Liam. The beneficiary? Not me, not our son, but him. In that moment, I understood. He hadn't just betrayed me, he had plotted to take our lives for profit. A few days earlier, I had been planning to take Liam to my mother's house in the suburbs of Boston to get ready for Christmas. We had planned to go skiing in Vermont, watch the hills blanketed in snow, and warm ourselves by the fireplace with mugs of hot chocolate. Liam had even made a list of Christmas gifts he wanted to give his father. But a strange feeling, like a whisper from deep inside, left me unsettled. I decided to take the car in for service. When the technician checked it, he called me over, his voice grave. "Mrs. Wilson, the braking system has been tampered with." I froze, clutching my chest, my heart squeezed tight. In that moment, the hatred I felt for him surged to its peak. You did this. For money, you were willing to kill me and Liam, the son you once held close and called God's gift to you. I lifted my head, took a deep breath, letting the appearance of grief and weakness settle back on me, like a mask I wore to hide the fire burning inside. Sitting on the cold plastic chair outside the operating room, the steady hum of machines from within sounded like the heartbeat of a man I no longer recognized. In just a few short hours waiting for James to fight for his life, memories of him and me came flooding back, like a slow-motion reel. We met in a university lecture hall, his bright smile and warm eyes. The times we held hands walking around the Charles River, the nights we sat together studying in the library. He made me open my heart, even though my family disapproved because his was poor, just a working-class family in the suburbs. "I have nothing but love for you," James once said, and I believed him. I chose him, despite everything, despite my parents' disappointed stares when I brought him home to meet them. But that love began to fade after Liam was born. Perhaps it wasn't love that lessened, but his true nature showing. He thought he had me, his wife who loved him, a mother willing to sacrifice everything. He began asking me for financial support, at first small amounts, calling them investments for our family's future. I loved him, but I wasn't blind. Before we married, I had built my own savings fund, along with a few small properties gifted by my parents, a condo in Back Bay and a plot of land in Cape Cod. I hadn't realized James had his eyes on those assets all along. He had no ability to invest. Money in his hands vanished quickly into failed ventures, a startup that collapsed, a real estate project left abandoned. I couldn't watch him burn through everything I had built. I put half the money into starting my own company, the other half into a trust for Liam, keeping only a small amount in our joint account. From then on, our fights erupted like New England winter storms, cold, violent, unrelenting. "You don't trust me?" James shouted, his face flushed red. I only looked at him quietly, my heart turning to ice. He began coming home late, strange perfume clinging to his jacket, stumbling excuses. "I met a friend at the bar," or "work meeting ran late." Then I heard whispers from friends, saw glimpses of texts on his phone. Other women, names I didn't want to know. But strangely, I no longer cared. My love for him had died, silently, slowly, like leaves falling outside the window. On the surface, James still played the role of the loving husband, wrapping his arms around me in front of friends, buying flowers on anniversaries. But I knew. He stayed for the money, for the suburban house, for the shiny black SUV, for everything I had given. He didn't dare file for divorce. He knew, without me, he was nothing. No house, no car. But I never imagined he would devise something more ruthless, inheriting all that belonged to me and Liam. He planned to take our lives, with cut brake lines, with an insurance policy where he was the sole beneficiary. To him, we were nothing but obstacles, stones in the way of his dream of wealth. That was when I made a plan, for myself and for Liam. I stood outside the operating room, just one wall away from James, where doctors and nurses were fighting to keep him alive. The steady beeping of machines echoed like the heartbeat of a stranger. I wrapped my arms around myself, fingernails digging deep into my palms, forcing the look of sorrow and fragility to stay on my face, the picture of a devoted wife as everyone around believed. Anyone who looked at me would think I was James's only anchor, the woman who would forgive everything, even his betrayal. But inside, I knew I was no longer that wife. Never again. Time in the hospital dragged on like a nightmare. Each passing minute felt like being trapped in a room with no exit. When the doors of the operating room swung open and James was wheeled out on a gurney, I glanced down at the thin blanket, the lower half empty, where his legs used to be. Tears burst out, hot and unstoppable, but not from grief. It was a performance, and I was the leading actress. A young nurse, her hair tied back, gently patted my shoulder. "You've got to stay strong, okay? Your family needs you now more than ever." I lifted my head, eyes red, voice trembling as if on the verge of collapse. "As long as my husband is alive." My words rang with sincerity, but inside, I smiled coldly. My kindness. I had spent it on James and his mistress, giving them the best hospital room, the most advanced equipment, all paid for from my account. I had no choice. She was an orphan, her injuries even worse than his, and I wanted everyone to see me as magnanimous. They looked at me, whispering behind my back, "She's so foolish." Yes, I once was a foolish woman, blindly in love with James. But now I was awake. Then James opened his eyes. At that moment, I exhaled. Not in relief, but because finally the play could go on. He looked at me, confusion in his gaze, as if he wanted to speak, but pain stole his breath and shook his body. I rushed to him, pulling him close, pretending to be distraught, my voice choking. "James, you're awake. Don't be afraid. I'm here." But when his eyes dropped to the blanket, to the void where his legs once were, he broke down. He screamed, hoarse and deranged. His cries echoed like a wounded beast. His injuries left him helpless, able only to howl out his terror. Nurses and doctors rushed in, their faces tight with alarm. "Careful with the wounds," one shouted before they injected a sedative. James drifted into sleep, eyelids heavy, his face twisted in agony. I stood there, watching, while a strange thrill surged inside me, like watching flames consume a dry forest. He had paid. Not all, but a part. The next time James woke, he didn't scream. He just lay there, eyes fixed on the stark white ceiling, hollow, soulless. After a long time, he turned to me, hesitant, as if he wanted to ask something but swallowed it back. I knew what it was. He wanted to know why the bottle of lubricant in his car, meant for his indulgence, had turned into superglue. If not for that glue, maybe the accident wouldn't have been so catastrophic. But so what? Who forced him to use it? Who forced him to betray me, to plan the murder of me and Liam for money? I still smiled, gentle, like the perfect wife. I leaned closer, eyes innocent, voice sweet. "What is it, love? Do you want some water? Or does something hurt?" James stared at me, eyes deep, searching for any sign that I knew the truth. But I gave nothing away. He only shook his head, whispering weakly, "It's nothing." I nodded, patted his hand softly, but inside I laughed coldly. He would never know that I had won. Not by screaming, not by revenge, but by letting him live in the ruins of himself. I stood up, turning toward the window where the red glow of sunset spilled through, staining the white walls gold. Outside, Boston's winter was arriving, cold winds sweeping through the trees. I had seen the insurance policy he bought. I had already taken the car in for repairs, and now I turned back to him, my voice light but sharp as a blade hidden in velvet. "Oh, I forgot to tell you. Your mistress, Ashley Brooks, she's in a vegetative state now." I paused, watching his face freeze, as if the blood in his veins had turned to ice. "And the baby in her womb? Couldn't be saved either," I continued evenly. "Was it yours, James, or my father's?" James's eyes widened, panic and rage colliding, and by now he must have realized. The play had been staged by me. He pushed on his arms, trying to lunge at me, to grab me, to hit me, to unleash his fury. But the effort toppled him from the bed, his body collapsing like a puppet with cut strings. Fresh stitches tore open, blood gushed, staining his patient gown, spreading like a grotesque painting. James gasped, eyes rolling back, then went limp, unconscious. First, screamed, feigning panic. "James! Doctor, please!" I called for the nurses, my hands trembling, my face etched with worry. I sat once more outside the operating room, shoulders slumped, hair disheveled, my face haggard. In just a few days, I had made myself look like a shadow of who I was. Dark circles under my eyes, coat stained, as if drained from caring for James. Only like this could I complete my performance. I never planned to end his life. Never. With my ability, even crippled, I could make him live in torment for the rest of his days, forced to look at me and Liam and remember he lost everything. But then, right after James's first surgery, I happened to unlock his phone, the password still our wedding date. How ironic. Inside, I found a secret more horrifying than anything else. James had planned not once, but many times, to make me disappear quietly. All for the insurance, all for money. My chest tightened, my heart crushed. James had paid, lost his legs, lost his mistress, lost the unborn child. But it wasn't enough. Ashley Brooks, the young orphan girl, now lying lifeless in intensive care, also had to pay. I stood up, straightening my coat, feeling like a warrior preparing for battle. I didn't need blood. I didn't need violence. I had my own way, smarter, sharper, to make her and James live forever with the cost of betrayal. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Liam's asking where his dad is." "Are you all right?" I typed back, steady hand. "I'm fine, Mom. I'll be home soon." I looked again at the doors of the operating room, where James was being saved once more. He might live, but his life had ended the moment he betrayed me and Liam. I would never let him or Ashley destroy my son's future. I walked down the hallway, the cold wind from the window rushing in, filling me with strength. Act 5. I stopped in front of Ashley's hospital room and pushed the door open. She lay there, wrapped head to toe in stark white bandages, looking no different from a mummy in a museum. Ashley, the woman my mother and I hated down to our bones. Ashley was my age, but she hadn't just come between my marriage with James. She had also become my father's current wife. Yes, you heard right. His wife now. When I first met James and Ashley at college, after a single family dinner invitation, Ashley became my father's mistress, pretending to be pure in front of him, smiling sweetly like candy at a Christmas fair. But behind his back, she sent my mother taunting messages, explicit photos, and pornographic videos, stabbing her straight in the heart. "You're old. You don't deserve him," one message said, attached to a picture of her in lingerie standing next to my father. My mother broke down, and one careless fall down the stairs left her with a broken arm, hospitalized. For 2 weeks in that hospital bed, my father, the man she had loved for 30 years, never once came to see her. I remember those days, when my mother held me in the hospital room, her throat hoarse, her eyes swollen red. "He was my one true love," she sobbed, her voice shattering like glass. "And now he says divorce." I hugged her tightly, heart aching, whispering, "I'll stay with you." We sat there, talking until she fell asleep from exhaustion. I quietly pulled the blanket over her, got up, walked to the door, turned off the lights, and closed it softly. But as I left the hospital, rage erupted inside me. I went to my parents' house when my mother wasn't there. Ashley was, acting like the real mistress of the home, dressed in an expensive designer dress, wearing my mother's pearl necklace, the 25th wedding anniversary gift. She stood up, looked at me with a taunting smile. "Hannah, sweetheart, you're home? Tell me what you'd like to eat. I'll have the chef cook your favorite tonight." I pulled out my phone, snapped a few quick pictures of her, then kicked hard, sending Ashley sprawling on the hardwood floor. She screamed, her voice shrill. "Hannah, you dare hit me. Your father won't forgive you." I raised my hand, staring at her with contempt. "Don't you know? I trained in martial arts for 10 years. Even my father fears me. You think he can protect you? Dream on." I punched again and again, blows like pounding rain, aimed at the most painful spots but leaving no lasting wounds. Ashley writhed, rolling on the floor, still cursing, but when she saw I wouldn't stop, she broke down, sobbing, begging me to spare her. My eyes burned red, all the fury, my broken family, my mother in the hospital, poured out onto her. When I was too exhausted to go on, I collapsed onto the sofa, watching Ashley sprawled out on the floor, gasping like a fish out of water. I said coldly, "The jewelry you're wearing. It belongs to my mother, worth a fortune. It's her personal property. Guess how long you'd go to prison for this." Ashley trembled, silent. "If you don't want prison," I continued, then take today's beating as us being even. I stood up, gathered all of my mother's jewelry, from the necklace around Ashley's neck to the rings on her fingers, and took them with me. As I walked out, my phone buzzed nonstop. My father calling, like a debt collector hounding. I switched it off, sent him one icy text. "If you plan to defend that woman, I'll beat you too." From then on, my father didn't dare contact me, but the anger inside me didn't fade. I reached out to a reporter I knew, sent every photo and video Ashley had used to taunt my mother. Within days, they were online, under sensational headlines. My father, a prominent businessman in Boston, became the center of attention in a way no one expected. He packed up with Ashley, moved to another city, determined to marry her. I remember the moment my parents divorced. Ashley, with fake tears streaming, clung to my father, sobbing, "I only love you. Love is priceless. My only mistake was loving you." Those were the exact words my father had once said when forcing my mother to divorce, snot and tears like some tragic lead in a cheap soap opera. An old man in his 50s, sitting there crying about true love. I looked at him, so angry I laughed. At his age, and he still believed in love. My mother, furious like a storm, flipped the dinner table, marched over and slapped my father, then slapped him again. Violence in me must be inherited from her, I thought, seeing the cold steel in her eyes, no trace of the weak wife who had once loved him. In the end, my parents divorced. To compensate, my father gave me half his assets, the house in Cape Cod, shares in his company, and a large sum of money. "Ashley loves me. She was willing to be the other woman," he said, full of pride. "Now I have to step up like a real man." I didn't reply. I only looked at him. Yes, he had once loved me, but he had chosen Ashley, chosen a young woman over his own family. My thoughts slowly drifted back to the present. I pulled a chair up in the hospital room and sat beside Ashley. She lay there, her whole body wrapped in white bandages, tubes running in and out, motionless like a wax figure in a museum. I looked at her and said quietly, my voice flat, "I really didn't expect it. The one in the car with my husband turned out to be you. I thought it was someone else." Then I continued, "You did so much for James, but did you really think, in his heart, you were the one he loved most?" I paused, watching the corner of Ashley's eye twitch, even though her body was still. "The truth is, he's had someone else for a long time." I lowered my voice, like sharing a secret. "It's your best friend, actually. What's her name again?" "Jessica Evans." I tilted my head, pretending to think, as if struggling to recall a small detail. "And there's more you don't know," I went on, voice steady but laced with cruelty. "All these years, the money you gave James? He's been saving it. Bought a car, a house for Jessica and her kid. Soon, they'll move in together. Oh, and their son. He's 3 now. Pale skin, looks a lot like James." I stopped, staring straight into Ashley's eyes, even though she couldn't respond. A single tear slid down from the corner of her eye, glistening under the light. I shook my head as if pitying her, but inside I was smiling coldly. Even the most detestable people have moments of misery. "James hid it well, afraid you'd suspect," I said. "You were too busy serving my father, waiting to inherit his money. Meanwhile, James was waiting for you too, waiting for you to hand over everything to him." I gave a small laugh, the sound echoing in the still room like a faint bell. "Sometimes I really wonder, for money, how did you stomach my father? A man 30 years older than you, already graying, while you're still young and pretty." I leaned closer, staring into her eyes. though all she could offer was silence. By now, I'm sure my father has found out about you and James. Do you really think he still cares about you? Before leaving, I cast her one last glance, my voice soft but poisonous, like a curse. James is still in the emergency room. Do you want to talk about love with him now? Tears streamed down Ashley's face, slow and steady, like dewdrops sliding down a window pane. I turned and walked out, my heels striking the tile floor in steady rhythm. Inside, I thought, with love this blind, Ashley will drag James into the abyss, a place with no return. Ashley and James, they would destroy each other, and I would be there to watch them fall. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Liam's asleep. Are you okay? Don't let them hurt you anymore. I typed back, my hands steady as stone. I'm fine, Mom. I'll protect Liam and you. Ashley might live, James might wake, but they would never escape the cost of betrayal. I would rebuild my life, for Liam, for my mother, and for myself, the woman who was once naive but now awake. I returned to the operating room to wait, but James didn't make it. The doctor stood there, his face heavy, his eyes full of regret. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Wilson, he said, his voice deep like a church bell on a winter night. My vision went black, and I slumped against the cold wall, my legs giving way. The doctor rushed to hold me up, surely believing I was the grieving wife crushed by the news. Oh, how ironic. I didn't faint from sorrow. I fainted from overwhelming joy. These past few days of playing the devoted wife had left me drained, sleepless, and now this good news arrived, so much that it floored me. What awaited me was a massive payout from James's life insurance. The policy I had taken out for him when we first married, long before I ever knew he would betray me. When I came to, I was lying in a hospital bed. A young nurse with her hair tied back looked at me with pity. I opened my eyes, met hers with gratitude, and nodded softly. But inside, I didn't weep for James. Those tears were a final goodbye, for a marriage long dead, for the years of youth wasted on a traitor. In that moment, I felt truly light, as though a boulder had been lifted from my chest. The nurse left, and the hallway fell quiet again. Then came another piece of news. Ashley hadn't survived either. Her injuries were too severe. She was gone, leaving behind only a lifeless body in intensive care. I closed my eyes and drew in a long breath, the icy air washing away the last of my bitterness. James and Ashley, the two who betrayed me, were gone forever. I no longer needed revenge. Fate had done it for me. The next day, after completing all the formalities, I had both James and Ashley cremated. Looking at their urns side by side on a wooden table, cold and still, I finally felt it. They were dead. Truly dead. I didn't hold a funeral. I was afraid that if I stood in front of a crowd, I wouldn't be able to stop myself from laughing out loud, exposing the cruel joy in my heart. James and Ashley didn't deserve a farewell. Ashley's parents had died when she was young, so I contacted my father to tell him she was gone. There was silence on the other end for a long time, as if he didn't know what to say. Finally, he answered coldly, "I know." Then he hung up. I smiled, unsurprised. No matter how deep love once runs, when it shatters, it curdles into hate. My father had once been infatuated with Ashley, had abandoned my mother for her, but now, he didn't care at all. I decided to do one final good deed. Hired someone to bring Ashley's ashes back to the small town in Massachusetts where she grew up, to be with her parents, if only in memory. And James? I took his urn to the river. I opened it, scattering his ashes into the current, watching them drift away, dissolving into the freezing water, carried everywhere. James always talked about freedom, about wanting to take Jessica Evans and their 3-year-old son to travel the world, to see the green hills of Vermont, the beaches of Cape Cod. Now, he drifted along the river, bound by no morals, no humanity. This was the perfect trip I chose for him, an endless journey with no destination. 1 week later, I sat in the lawyer's office. As James's legal wife, all of his personal assets, bank accounts, insurance policies, and even the suburban house were now mine under inheritance law. I hired the best lawyer in the city to certify the will, ensuring everything was transferred legally, without a single loophole. The house James had bought for Jessica Evans, where she and their 3-year-old son lived, luckily was still in his name. I immediately contacted a real estate agency. They worked like a whirlwind, listing the house within days. I smiled as the contract was signed before me. The money from that house would go straight into Liam's trust fund for my son's future. I thought back to how it all began a year earlier, when I first noticed the pattern in James's behavior. Every few months, he claimed he was going on a business trip, but I wasn't naive anymore. I hired someone to follow him, and the truth slowly fell into place, like puzzle pieces clicking together. There were no business trips. James was going to Jessica Evans, the woman he had hidden for years, and their 3-year-old son, a mirror of James, with brown eyes and the same smile. I knew about them, but for Liam's sake, I endured, gritting my teeth through nights. James came home late, the strange perfume lingering on his jacket. I knew this Christmas James would see Jessica again, just as before. I had prepared. The expensive food baskets, the health supplements, and the switch in the lubricant gel. I knew his dangerous habit, doing that in his black SUV. But this time, it wasn't Jessica in the car. It was Ashley Brooks. I hadn't expected her to interfere, but it changed nothing. Jessica, now with no money and no house James had bought for her, would have to make her own way to raise their son. I didn't need to lift a finger. Fate had done it for me. I left the lawyer's office and stepped into the snowy street. I powered off my phone, looked at it one last time. The tiny piece of plastic that had held James's lies, my father's desperate calls, Ashley's provocations. I tossed it into the pond across the street, listening to the soft splash as it sank into the icy water. There was nothing left to keep. I drove back to my mother's house, where she and Liam were waiting. "Let's go home," I whispered to myself, gripping the steering wheel, feeling like a bird finally free from its cage. I walked into my mother's apartment, where Liam was playing with his building blocks, his smile glowing. My mother embraced me, her eyes gentle but still scarred from years of betrayal. I had brought Liam to her as soon as it all began, never letting him catch even a trace of what his father really was. James, Ashley, Jessica, they were the past, gone like ashes drifting in the Charles River, disappearing forever. I sat down, pulling Liam into my arms, soaking in his warmth. This life, spent with the woman who gave me birth, and the child I brought into the world, that was enough. On Saturday, a month later, my mother, Liam, and I drove down the road to the seaside villa I had just bought in Cape Cod. The sun was setting, painting the waves gold, like a painting made of light. I carried a box inside while Liam ran from room to room, his laughter echoing through the white walls, blending with the sound of the sea breeze. My mother opened a window, letting the salty wind rush in, carrying with it the scent of freedom. Liam found a small seashell, a souvenir we had picked up on a beach trip the year before. "This belongs here," he said, carefully placing it on the fireplace, his eyes shining like stars. I looked at my mother and Liam, my throat tight. This villa wasn't just walls and windows. It was proof. Proof that no matter how James tried to bury me, I had endured. That evening, we planted flowers in the front yard, our hands covered in soil, our hearts filled with joy. Liam looked up, his smile radiant like sunlight. "It feels like home, Mom," he said, his voice clear. I pulled him close, pressing my cheek against his soft hair, breathing in the scent of sea salt and jasmine. This would be our home. As the stars began to scatter across the sky, I stood on the porch, looking out at the horizon where sea and sky became one. My thoughts returned to the TikTok video, the black SUV, the bottle of superglue, the severed brake lines, James's horrifying schemes, Ashley's betrayal, and my father's blindness. They had all tried to destroy me, but I was the root, and I had risen again, stronger than ever. I whispered to myself, was I too cold, walking away without looking back? Then I smiled, shook my head. It was the only way to finally be free.